I was never supposed to see him like that. The man who barked orders at us, who carried the weight of the entire team on his shoulders, was crouched against the fence behind the field, shaking like a boy who just lost everything. And God help me, I couldn't look away. Coach Rivera wasn't just my coach. He was the person every guy in the locker room wanted to impress, the guy who turned broken plays into miracles. To me, though, he'd always been something more dangerous, someone I wanted in ways I could never admit out loud. He was 10 years older, too serious, too off-limits. And yet, in that moment, with his strong hands trembling as he tried to wipe his face before anyone could notice, he wasn't coach anymore. He was just a man, lonely, hurting, and suddenly real in a way I'd never dared imagine. I should have walked away, pretended I hadn't seen anything. That's what a good player, a good kid, would have done. But my heart had already made its decision before my brain could catch up. Coach? My voice cracked, embarrassingly soft. His head snapped up, and his eyes bloodshot, raw met mine. For a second, he looked furious, like I'd stumbled into a place I had no right to be. Then the fight drained out of him, leaving only exhaustion. "Evan," he whispered, and it almost broke me, hearing my name in his mouth like that. "You shouldn't be here." But I was. God, I was. I took a step closer, heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. Are you okay?" Stupid question. He was clearly not okay. But I didn't know what else to say. He huffed a broken laugh, bitter and sharp. "Do I look okay?" His voice cracked, betraying the steel he usually carried. There was a beat of silence, just the sound of the wind rattling the chain-link fence behind him. My chest ached. For once, I didn't care if this crossed lines or if tomorrow he'd pretend none of this ever happened. I knelt down in front of him, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from his body. "No," I admitted, "but you don't have to pretend around me." That did it. His eyes softened, the fight slipping from his features, and something unspoken sparked in the space between us. Vulnerability, connection, maybe even longing, scared me and thrilled me all at once. The truth was, I had been in love with him for months. I knew it in the way my chest tightened whenever he clapped a hand on my shoulder after practice, in the way I secretly memorized the sound of his laugh, in the way my skin burned with every accidental brush of contact. But loving him had always felt like loving the sun, impossible to reach without burning up. And now here he was, broken in front of me, letting me see a part of him no one else could. "Life doesn't stop kicking, huh?" he murmured half to himself. "You think you've got it under control, then it just knocks you down again." I wanted to ask what had happened. I wanted to fix it even though I knew I couldn't. Instead, I said the only thing that felt true. "You don't have to go through it alone." He stared at me, really stared, as if trying to figure out if I meant it, if I could handle the storm that came with being close to him. "You're just a kid," he finally said, but his voice lacked conviction. I smiled, shaky but real. "I'm not as much of a kid as you think." Something flickered in his eyes, then fear, maybe, or desire, or both. He swallowed hard and looked away, but his hand, his strong, calloused hand, twitched like it wanted to reach for me. And that was the moment I knew, whatever happened next, my heart was already his. Later, I'd remember that night as the one that changed everything. Not with a kiss, not with anything reckless, but with the silent, dangerous promise that passed between us. The promise that I would see him, really see him, no matter how much he tried to hide. For the next week, I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. Practice became unbearable, his voice calling my name during drills, his hand brushing mine as he passed me the ball, his gaze lingering just a second too long. It was torture, sweet and maddening, because we both knew something had shifted, something we couldn't name but couldn't ignore either. One evening, after everyone else had left, I lingered on the field. He stayed behind too, pretending to jot notes on his clipboard, but I could tell he was waiting. My chest tightened with a mix of fear and anticipation. Finally, I walked over. "Coach, about the other night." He froze. For a second, I thought he might shut me down completely, build that wall back up brick by brick. But then he sighed and set the clipboard aside. "You shouldn't have seen me like that," he said quietly. Maybe I was supposed to, I whispered back. His eyes met mine, and I swear the whole world went silent. He looked like he wanted to argue, to shut it all down before it spiraled into something neither of us could take back. But he didn't. He just stood there, breathing hard, as if every word in his throat would either save him or destroy him. I couldn't let him retreat. Not this time. I've thought about you, I admitted, voice shaking but steady enough to be true. Every day, every practice, every time you look at me like I matter. I stopped myself before the words could collapse under their own weight. His lips parted, and for a terrifying moment, I thought he was going to tell me to leave, to forget this ever happened. Instead, he whispered, "Evan, you don't know what you're saying." "I do," I said, and I meant it. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, but beneath it, there was something else, something alive. His hand shifted, barely an inch, until his knuckles brushed against mine. The contact was so small, so fleeting, but it sent fire racing through my veins. "God help me," he murmured. "I can't stop thinking about you either." The words hit me like a punch, stealing my breath. My knees went weak, and for a second I thought I might collapse right there on the field. But then he looked at Miral, I looked at me with an honesty that stripped us both bare. "You scare me," he said, voice breaking. "Because you make me want things I'm not supposed to want." My chest tightened, not with fear, but with a strange, fierce joy. "Then don't fight it," I whispered. "Just let me be here, with you." We didn't kiss that night. We didn't cross the line everyone would have said was unforgivable. But in some ways, what happened was even more intimate. He let me sit beside him on the empty bleachers, the night air wrapping around us like a fragile cocoon. He let me lean my shoulder against his, just for a moment, as if the weight of me was the only thing keeping him steady. And when he finally spoke about the things that broke him, the father he could never please, the marriage that crumbled because he gave everything to football and nothing to himself, I didn't look away. I listened. I held it for him, every sharp edge, every bruise. By the time he walked me to my car, the world felt different. Softer. Dangerous, but full of possibility. "Good night, Evan," he said, his voice low and rough. "Good night, coach," I replied, though the word felt too small for what he was becoming to me. The weeks that followed were a blur of stolen moments. The way his hand lingered on my back just a second too long. The way his gaze caught mine across the field, heavy with all the words we couldn't say out loud. The way my heart raced every time I stayed late after practice, needing those few extra minutes with him. It was agony. It was bliss. It was everything. And then, one rainy night, it finally broke. We were in the locker room after everyone else had left. The storm outside rattled the windows, but inside, it was just us, standing too close in the echoing silence. He looked at me like a man on the edge of a cliff, one step away from falling. "I can't keep doing this," he said, but his voice trembled. "I can't keep pretending I don't." I didn't let him finish. I closed the distance, pressing my forehead against his, my breath mingling with his in the charged air. "Then don't pretend," I whispered, and just like that, he kissed me. Desperate, trembling, like he'd been holding his breath for months, and I was the only oxygen left. The world tilted. The storm raged. But in that moment, nothing mattered except the way his mouth fit against mine. The way his hands gripped me like he was terrified I'd vanish. The way every piece of me finally fell into place. It wasn't easy after that. It wasn't some fairy tale where the world smiled on us and everything lined up neatly. There were whispers, risks, nights filled with fear that we'd be caught, mornings heavy with the weight of reality. But there were also moments that made it all worth it. The secret smiles, the quiet touches, the nights where he let me see every part of him, unguarded and real, and the mornings where I woke up knowing I'd never be the same again. He became more than my coach. He became my anchor, my storm, my home. And even when the world felt like it was against us, we held on. Because love, the kind that cracks you open and stitches you back together, doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It demands to be felt no matter the cost. And from the night I caught him crying behind the field, my heart had never been the same and I never wanted it to be. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.